Good day, everyone. We are here to discuss the situation of construction companies during the COVID-19 pandemic. Three parts will be reported in this video. First part is the introduction to be discussed by Eliza Camille Miyasis, to be followed by the body to be discussed by Mark Andre Talastas and Kay Ann Kailipan. And last part would be the conclusion to be discussed by Leslie Castro and Lizelle Ranoco. Let's start the reporting. Introduction.
Coronavirus disease may just be the biggest hurdle for the Philippines' 4.4 trillion peso or $86 billion infrastructure program called Build, Build, Build. An industry group consisting of the country's biggest construction companies warns infrastructure projects may only be fully restarted by the first quarter of next year. On top of that, Barry Paulino, Executive Director of the Philippine Constructors Association, says their members are now crunching the numbers on how much more they need to spend on personal protective equipment and other health precautionary measures once they start to reopen under a new normal.
These are the things that will be very costly. Mind you, all contractors, ang average profit margin yan is between 5 to 10%. If all these cost elements will be added on, wala na. So what's the point in getting back to construction if you will not be guaranteed on the payment of this extra cost?
PCA estimates show the whole impact of COVID-19 to the industry could be as high as 2.6 trillion pesos or $51 billion. That's the total construction gross value of the country in 2019. The group also says the industry has already lost roughly 110 billion pesos or over $2 billion in the first month of the lockdown when the Department of Public Works and Highways ordered the halt of all construction activities in Luzon. Paulino also says out of the 120,000 infrastructure projects across the Philippines, only 70 to 80,000 can be taken up again once the lockdown is lifted.
Maybe we should really use this year, the remaining months of the year, to reassess the position of the industry and put some measures to really digitize and modernize, including the procurement process, lahat, no? So that by next year, we are all ready. Yun lang,
you can hit the ground running by next year. Really.
Correct. This year, wala na to eh.
But there are some things that can be done as early as now.
Highway project, it's a good project that can be started. Perhaps yung right of way problems niyan should be done right now under the space of powers of the President.
And while the big boys of the industry can absorb the expected higher construction costs, Paulino expresses worries over the 13,200 smaller contractors who may not have the means to ride out this crisis. These players, which are considered micro, small, and medium enterprises, comprise 88% of the industry's total.
I think Field Guarantee is now working on some financial packages that can be availed of by the contractors. That's a good move, no? But it will also take some time because they have to come up with their guidelines and how to do it.
As for bigger players, Paulino says they hope government and lenders can keep borrowing costs cheaper. Just last Thursday, the Philippine Central Bank made an off-cycle decision to cut policy rates by 50 basis points to 2.75%. This is ahead of monetary authorities' scheduled policy meeting on May 24.
COVID-19 outbreak started in the early January of 2020 in the Philippines. This infection spread like a wildfire on people who were exposed to the symptoms targeting the respiratory system. Due to the continuous increase of COVID-19 cases, President Rodrigo Duterte placed the Philippines under the state of calamity. Safety measures were implemented such as travel ban, public transportation restrictions, community quarantine, lockdowns, and age restrictions on people who can go outside their houses. Business industry suffered losses. Business closure happened to prevent workplace exposures, and their alternative solution is work-from-home management. Some of the establishments were temporarily closed, and some of them underwent bankruptcy. construction companies engage in building apartments, houses, establishments, and infrastructures and require a lot of time, manpower, and materials to finish a project. Construction industry contributes significantly to economic growth and enhances the prosperity of our nation. Government deals with them to ensure a successful plan in constructing establishments, real estates, roads, and bridges that will help to develop a greater country. Their objective is to ensure the people that they deliver excellent services with high-quality materials and guarantee the safety of everyone. The abrupt changes in our country brought by the pandemic caused a massive impact on the construction industry. As a result, construction projects slowed down and many of them have been stopped. Construction workers were disrupted due to lockdown and safety measures protocol and limited the movement of the materials needed. Another factor is long-term infrastructure projects have been cancelled as the people experience financial crisis. Currently, the government allowed construction projects to resume in some areas under general community quarantine and following the protocol and guidelines.
Body.
The going concern assumption. The management is required to determine if a contractor can continue as a going concern within 1 year after the date the financial statements are issued. The ESC subtopic 205-40 provides guidance for evaluating whether there is a substantial doubt in a construction company's ability to continue as a going concern. The evaluation is based on events that are known at the time the financial statements are issued so that the decision-making would be objective and relevant within for future events. Contractors must disclose the effects of COVID-19 including financial projections, the ability to meet the debt covenants, the impact of key financial ratios and other relevant information on their going concerns evaluation prior to issuance. They must also consider the adverse factors such as reduced product demand, closures, and the ability to keep key performance indicators per department. Asset impairment in PPE. COVID-19 may change the planned use of an asset that must be disclosed. ASC 360 indicates that impairment testing in long-lived assets like their building, machineries, and construction vehicles that should be performed whenever events or changes in circumstances indicate that an asset's carrying value may not be recoverable. Recognition for goodwill. It requires businesses to perform an impairment test of goodwill and indefinite life intangibles at least once per year, or when an event occurs. This assessment reflecting the economic impact of COVID-19 to its carrying amount required in IAS 36 to ensure the assets of the entity. Deferred tax assets. Changes to forecasts of taxable income might impact the ability to recover deferred tax assets if it is no longer probable that future taxable profit will be available. The corresponding deferred tax asset can no longer be recognized under PAS 12. Recognition in inventory. Changes to supply chains, workforce availability, and consumer demand may result in decreases to the net realizable value of inventories. Contractors should assess whether the carrying value of their inventory needs to be adjusted and disclosed. During the early months of the pandemic, many contractors were unstable to source basic materials such as sand, cement, and bricks, while also suffering from labor shortages. Provision and liability recognition of contractors in their onerous contracts. Construction entities must consider whether any of their contracts may have become onerous due to the downturn in the global economy as a result of COVID-19. Example of this is the increasing cost of materials and supplies due to supply chain issues, and also the lease contracts prior to commencement date in right use of an asset like vehicles and machineries. IAS 37 should be applied. Lastly, the employee termination cost or benefits. COVID-19 consideration may consider the following restructuring plans, reducing their workforce that rise the obligation of the construction companies in employee pension costs and benefits. For bonuses for construction workers who work in difficult situations. These payments may be contingent on continued service for a certain period. It is a kind of constructive obligation as construction workers renders their service.
Other areas of recognition and measurement: variable consideration. Management assumption concerning variable consideration based on facts and circumstances at the reporting date will need to be reviewed in the context of COVID-19. A significant reversal of revenue is possible as these considerations are measured, which may result in negative revenue in the current and hedge disqualification. Due to COVID-19 impact, forecast transactions are no longer high probable. They do not qualify as an eligible hedge item, and hedge accounting must be discontinued with the balance on the cash flow hedge treated as. If the hedge future cash flow are still expected to occur, the balance on the cash flow hedge reserve remains in the cash flow hedge reserve until the future cash flow occur, and is then recognized in the same way as per the qualifying hedge item. If the hedge future cash flow are no longer expected to occur, the balance on the cash flow hedge reserve is immediately reclassified to profit and loss as reclassification adjustment. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused supply chain disruption, construction delay, and some instances the shutdown of ongoing projects. The result may increase carrying costs for developers, extend timeliness for completion, and require changes in building plans or design. All of these factors have ramifications for the construction loan and the financial health of the borrower. Construction lenders must be able to respond to a default scenario or with a loan modification that facilitates completion of the project and eventual repayment of loan. Threshold questions include whether a project has lost value and the ability of contractors, subcontractors, and architects and suppliers to perform under the construction contract. Parties must identify whether insurance coverage is available to cover losses associated with disruption caused by the pandemic, the disbursement obligation of the lender, and the loan agreement and the financial condition of the borrower and guarantor. Construction loan modification present particular problems for lender. All interested loan parties, including loan servicers and participants, must consent to changes. Determining the status of the title and any competing liens may be problematic as its title offices may have backlog due to government mandates closure. State law may require the lender to file a notice. Presentation current versus non-current. COVID-19 may result in certain assets no longer being consumed in an entity's normal reporting cycle. As classification of asset is based on expectation, this may need to be reclassified as non-current asset. On the other hand, classification of liabilities depend on right and not expectation. Liabilities may therefore need to be reclassified as current liabilities if they become due on demand to breaches of contractual terms and asset held for sale and discontinued operation. During COVID-19 pandemic period, entities should determine whether certain non-current asset or disposal group should be classified as held for sale under IFRS 5, and also whether there are any discontinued operations whose results should be disclosed separately. Disclosure risks and uncertainties requires entity to disclose information about risks and uncertainties that could significantly change the amount reported in the financial statement. COVID-19 impact a variety of significant accounting estimates related to volume discounts, variable considerations or rebate in revenue contract, financial projection for asset impairment evaluation, or market data and other input used to value investment. Contractors are required to disclose risks that exist at the date of the financial statement. as well as if the entity will become vulnerable in the near term as a result. Disclose what happened and how COVID-19 has impacted current and future operations. Companies are required to measure some of their assets and liabilities at fair value. This is a date-specific price estimate based on assumption that market participants would make current conditions. When making assessment and judgment for measuring fair value, the company should consider the condition and corresponding assumption that were known or knowable to market participants. The fair value measurement impact would depend on the evaluation of whether the severity of the outbreak at the reporting date would have impacted participant valuation assumption at that time. Companies will also need to consider making related disclosure that could reasonably be expected to influence decision that the user of general purpose financial statement would make on the basis of those financial statements. Disclosure may be needed to enable user to understand whether or not the outbreak has been considered for the purpose of fair market value. Users should understand the basis for selecting the assumption and input that were used and the related sensitivities.
Conclusion.
So today I'm going to discuss about the effects of COVID-19 in the financial statements of construction companies. First, I will discuss about decrease in daily productivity of construction companies. So, due to the lockdown decision of the government and social distancing being implemented, it became a solution for most of the workers to work from home, which is not applicable to construction companies. So in result, productivity declines and so as the profit of the construction companies. Next is about employees' health and safety affect their work productivity, which results in slowing the process of their project. So due to the number of cases in the Philippines, our mental and psychological health become affected badly, and anxiety of getting exposed to COVID-19, which affect the workers' productivity. Also, installment of disinfectant facilities varies cost to the construction companies, and implementation of guidelines makes the process longer and slower. The next is shortage in supplies results in additional costs added in purchase materials. As COVID-19 pandemic hits in 2019, there's a lot of manufacturing companies shut down, like Spain, India, and other countries in the world, which interrupts the supply chain. And sooner, we will be facing shortage, and it will add losses to the construction companies due to the additional expenses that we will be incur in the future. Lastly would be the delay on project, and its mitigation results in incurring expenses and possibly loss of the project. So in this bullet, we are talking about the force majeure, which most of the construction companies uses to eliminate the burden of non-performance and to have an extension on their projects and to terminate the project if it's not likely to be happen in near future. So in summary, the effect of COVID-19 in financial statement of construction companies are about the profit and losses, additional expenses, and decreasing their credit reputation on the bank. Because in construction companies, it is essential to them to have a loan because in this industry, you cannot collect 100% immediately to your client.
We have witnessed the 21st century's worst economic crisis. This recession is the result of a coronavirus-induced pandemic. For most entities, including the construction companies, operating in a challenging economic setting in the midst of the crisis contributed to the difficulties in reporting or presenting the financial statements. Because of COVID-19, construction companies' future financial statements will be affected. As the pandemic is still impacting the economy, we expect that there would be considerable changes in the estimates made by the businesses, including the useful life of an asset, pension costs or employee benefits, and bad debts, which can affect the future cash flow projections. Also, because of this pandemic, inventories such as tools, steel, sand, and cement might be damaged or stolen, which will result in an inventory write-down, thus affecting the income of the business. And last, financial statements will be more detailed. Users and investors will definitely look and expect more information beyond what is typically provided. Significant events will be considered, more information will be disclosed, and COVID-19 impacts will be presented, which can be seen in the company's income statements or notes to financial statements.
Thank you for watching!